Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm swell. How you doing, Bob?
I'm great. Welcome all everybody to the Pop Culture Squadcast live on this Tuesday, October 1st. It is spooky season, and we are here with you. Um,
This is my daughter's favorite time of the year.
well, it's mine too. And you know what? It is comic book company's favorite, one of comic book company's favorite time of year because we will be inundated for the next 31 days with as many Halloween themed, spooky themed, creepy themed comic books that you can imagine.
Yes. And then we get to do the same thing with Christmas, and we get to do, that's okay. These are
Yeah,
holidays.
that's it is.
But Halloween ties into cosplay, or actually it's the other way around. So it is closer to what it is that we do. If you go to comic book conventions and you see the cosplayers, if you are a cosplayer, it's a wonderful thing because you're seeing our art form come alive. Sometimes it's scary. One year at San Diego, I think, just about every single human being, including almost all of the babies, were dressed up as the Joker.
Well, all right. So hang on, folks. We're going to get to that in a second. um, it's a lot. It's a lot of comics that are coming. I mean, I was just looking. Our new number ones is just going to be a little late. It'll be out tomorrow morning, but like crazy amount of even just this first day. There's a new Crow book. There's something called The Creeping Below. DC. Okay, so there's a new Creature Commandos book coming out from DC where they have to highlight it as DC Horror Presents Creature Commandos. I don't know why we just don't call it Creature Commandos, but
Is it a one shot or is it a series?
it's a series. It's written by David Dasmalchian.
Yes, I did see that in the solicitations, which means I have to remember what happened 2 months ago.
Yes, I understand that.
Which is very taxing.
There's the DC's I Know What You Did Last Crisis.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing is there is a need for comics that are available to have tryouts and get people some work and experience and stuff like that. So I don't hate them.
My two favorite comics as a child were showcased in The Brave and the Bold.
Yes.
For that very reason.
So Brave and the Bold, when you were a kid, was that a tryout on creators?
Well, not so much creators, but on material.
Yeah.
It switched from being a sort of adventure comic, not adventure comics, but an adventure comic, to a tryout book with the Justice League three issues. And from there, it went on, a lot of their filler material, Suicide Squad, the original Suicide Squad, and, just all kinds of stuff like that. But then it became, after Hawkman, which was life transforming for me, then it became the crossover book, which was kind of cool, except for that it was really a cool concept. The stories sucked by and large. And then we got the Batman team up book, which was much better. And then Jim Aparo came and saved the day.
Yep, I agree. Jim Aparo's Brave and the Bold is best. This is great. Like, so Bill, hey Bill, thanks for watching. His point is that his wife Adriana Mello, who is a fantastic artist, we've sung her praises here before. She was doing a 10-page Power Girl short, and now it got her on the regular ongoing for now, which is awesome.
One of the many reasons why I like anthology comics, which really don't exist, so now I have to say sort of backup stories, is that it does give people the opportunity to use it as a showcase for talent, as you had mentioned a few seconds ago. And we have gotten a lot of great talent out of there. You got to start somewhere.
Hmm.
Publish, you can work with the independents. That's great. But if you want to go to DC and Marvel, if that's your ambition, nothing wrong with that. Those backups are pretty much where you're going to start. And it's like a rookie card, you
Sure,
know?
sure.
It's like a rookie card. And I enjoy that. It's wonderful to see people graduate out from that.
I agree. So I want to take a minute. Mike and I were chatting, folks, before we brought you guys in, and we have a little pre chat, and it's a tough time right now. There's a lot of negative stuff in the news. There's a lot of untimely passing. We want to take a minute, and I want to take a minute to kind of celebrate or remember the passing of Chris Christopherson, who passed over the weekend. And
Yes.
when I saw the news, I was pretty sad about it. Look, this is a new layout. We're getting
Oh, look at
fancier.
that. That's so cute.
So I was pretty sad about it, but I also thought, I'm like, I saw some memories of him and things that I had seen before, and I said, told Mike yesterday, well, just we're going to talk about him on the show, and he said, well, I've only met him once, which of course you have met. It was my reaction to that text, but well, could you share that moment?
Yeah, I mean, I had seen him a lot because he sort of discovered Steve Goodman,
right?
Chicago artist who is just a brilliant musician, a brilliant songwriter, a terrific sense of humor.
Well,
and so therefore, all the little blues and folk clubs which surrounded my neighborhood, I would run into him. And in the earliest days, Chris Christopherson always was there, crashing his show usually, just sort of walking up on stage. It was great.
I had heard there's another story that just these things happen, that because he was with Steve convinced him to go check out this other guy at this at another show after he had crashed Steve's show, apparently, and that guy eventually got a record contract, and that was John Prine.
Yes, and I think that the club that he was playing was like 2 doors down from the club that Steve was playing. I mean, it was certainly in that neighborhood. That's what I mean by when I say I spent years in the most creative cauldron in the world. We were surrounded by alternative theater, great talent came out of that, both writers and performers, great singers, my God, wonderful music. Those are good days. I mean, I'm not saying everybody should go back to that period of time.
No.
Each era has its own. This was my childhood, my young adulthood.
And, I mentioned to you earlier, and I'm going to repeat it for the folks to hear. It just seemed to me like Chris Christopherson was a good human.
Absolutely. Just look at the Sinead O'Connor stuff.
Sure.
And there's so much other material, but
there's so many stories about him, beyond the words that he wrote and sang and the movies that he acted in, and just about who he was and how he held himself, accountable to this world. Just seemed like he wanted to do things the right way. Absolutely. And felt he had to.
And he had a good sense of humor about it.
Mm-hmm.
He was, from my experience, very open-minded. He was not a dialectician. He came across very, very honest in a way that you feel can't be faked. The one time I'd actually met him, I mean, in terms of having conversation and stuff, we were at a party, and he was there with a guy named Biff Rose, who was fairly popular for about an hour and a half back then. He was very good. I love the guy, and he also was a comics fan. So we had a lot to talk about, and he introduced me to Chris. And parties back in those days consisted of a whole bunch of people sitting around in a circle and passing illegal stuff around to one another. So most of us were having a pretty damn good time anyway.
Sure.
And yet Chris was cracking us up. Everybody got involved. He made sure everybody got involved in the conversations. You know, the one-on-one I had with him during that time was, just brilliant. Because you immediately, or at least I immediately forgot that I was talking to a star.
Yeah.
And in some cases that can get you killed. I mean, some stars have that ego, and it's not always a bad thing. But if you don't treat them like royalty on some level, they get offended or get confused. Not Chris, not at all. And he, not the people that he would hang out with by and large. So it was pretty damn cool.
He lived a long life, and that is the one of the things.
He lived 2 lives.
Sure, I think there was more than 2.
Well, that's true, and I think that's true for most of us. But in terms of being a superstar,
sure,
musician, he was an actor, and he was in the Blade movies, for crying out loud. He was in those 3 Blade movies, and was great. I loved him in that.
Yeah.
He's a man to admire.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate you doing that. And, rest in peace to Chris Christopherson. There's been a lot of people who we've lost recently. And we're going to bring our guest in pretty soon because he is here. So that we're very excited about that. But there's just been a lot of loss lately. So
I'm sure Chris will enjoy coming in after all the death talk.
Well, we can talk about some other stuff. We will talk about stuff. We're going to talk about some really cool stuff with our guest, Chris. And I don't want to keep him waiting too long because I know he doesn't have a whole lot of time with us, and I want to give him all the opportunity we have. So I've been wanting to talk to him on the record, on an interview for a really long time. I've known Chris for probably 6-7 years now. And he's a really cool person, and we're going to bring him in. So here we go. Hey, Chris. Welcome to the SquadCast.
Hi, Chris.
How you doing? I don't know if this camera setup is right with this light behind me.
We're okay. We can see you. We can hear you.
You're a little bit in shadow. Maybe you want to be. I don't know.
What's that?
I said you're a little bit in shadow, but maybe that's your desire. I
don't know. like a man of mystery.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
Let me see if I can make this a little bit less.
There you go. Ooh, that's better.
There you go.
Now you
get my action figures.
Less like a Batman TV villain.
So I don't know that you guys met Mike Gold, Chris Campana. Nice. Introduce yourself.
I shake your hand, but my arm's not that long.
I want one of the things that I'm so interested in talking to you about is you are one of my favorite stories of perseverance. And I cannot tell you how excited I am about the success that you've had over the last couple of years. You know, you're working for Marvel, you're doing, you're doing Spider-Man, you're doing Daredevil, you're doing Ghost Rider. Just, I know that those are huge wins for you. You're also, working on Masters of the Universe stuff. You got some covers there as well. It's just been a big winning ride for you lately, and I'm really excited for that.
Thanks, man.
How's that felt for you, over this time?
It's funny, like the opening, that little intro thing, it's some of that work is a decade old.
Yep.
And it was like it was weird. I haven't seen some of that artwork because I tend to avoid some of the older artwork, even though all artwork,
not bad stuff.
Yeah, I mean, all artwork makes you better, but it's hard to look at sometimes. But how does it feel?
Well, again, I just want to give you a little bit of a time to think about that. When did you commit when did you commit to being full-time comic book art? Like, this is my full-time job. Like, when did
the story, and I hope you guys can hear me okay.
We can hear you great.
Great. The story, I've told it a few times. I knew I wanted to be an artist since I was 10. And up until the time, I was 22, I was really pursuing being a full-time artist. I moved to California for a little bit. I did everything I could. And basically, when my son was born, when I was 22, I stopped pursuing art because it just wasn't conducive to raising a kid. Like, a freelance life wasn't conducive at that time. It was harder to get in then than it is now, in my opinion. There wasn't social media. There wasn't eyes on your stuff at all times. Editors weren't following you on Instagram without you knowing, and then, reaching out or Twitter or whatever. You had to go to a show. You had to show your work off, and it didn't work. And then, so I was out of the art game after my stuff with Negative Burn in '97 for 14 years, until my son and I were talking about chasing dreams. And he said, "What's your dream, Dad?" And I said, "I want to be a comic book artist." And he said, "Well, why aren't you doing it?" And I said, "Well, you know what, you're right." And then the next day I started drawing again. And
so your son is your agent?
Yeah. Well, he said it takes a percentage of the money. So, but and then I've been full-time since that moment. So it's been 13 years full-time. I was on the road a lot. I was doing 30, 35 shows a year, all indie based, and slowly got mainstream stuff. And then a couple of years ago, I sat down with CB at Terrificon because I had been around long enough where people were starting to talk about me in rooms that I wasn't in, which is the way I think it works for a lot of people. Like, you're just around enough, you kind of make a good impression, and you're not a jerk, and you show up, and hopefully the work improves over time. And so CB and I sat down. I'd never submitted to Marvel in my career. And we sat down, and it's actually an interesting story because that was in July, and in February of the following year, so it had taken a few months, we'd gone back and forth in emails, and Marvel was talking about trying to find the right project for me. And I was sitting with my son, and I was like, "Man, I got to tell you, I'm getting older, and I'm getting tired of being on the road." And I was like, I'm thinking about hanging it up. And I haven't told this story really, but I was like, I'm thinking about hanging it up. And the moment I said that this is not for story's sake, I got an email from Marvel. And it was from the editor, Darren. And he said, "How do you feel about working?" He's like, "What's your availability for the next 6 weeks? We want you to draw an issue of Ghost Rider." And I took my phone and I just handed it to my son, and I said, "This is crazy." And I broke down from it because, as you know, I've been through a lot in the last 6 years, and not to mention just the whole of life, as we all get kind of beat up every now and then. And I said, "Jaden, you've got to respond to this email. I don't know how, I can't write this email. So, and luckily he's a professional writer, so he was pretty good with the words. And that was it. I got the script. March 15th, I got the script, and that was it.
People see your stuff. They buy a comic, they like what they see, they look at your name, and they think, well, this is what the guy is all about. Well, it's like any other part of show business. It takes years and years and years of perfection, of learning your craft, of making it your own, and it takes an equal amount of time to sort of get to be known so that you can actually get the work.
Right.
So by the time you've actually earned it and become an overnight success, you've got at least a decade into this, and probably a hell of a lot more if you talk about the whole learning curve.
Yeah.
So by the time you get it, damn it, you deserve it.
Well, it's an interesting thing because art is about hating yourself, right? In some way, in some respects, there's a lot of self-loathing that comes with art. And, most of the time, one thing you have to learn as an artist is the image that's in your head is never going to be what appears on paper. So you've already got to deal with the disappointment of that as you're working. It's never going to be that. And that's something I tell young artists all the time. Pencils have erasers for a reason, or, undo on your digital platforms.
Right. And
once you let go of that self-hatred and all this stuff and achieving certain goals, yes, I think you deserve them, but it's almost hard to let go of the hustle that it took to get them.
Sure.
It's very difficult to accept that there is another email coming. Because when you first get in the game, like when I got that gig with on Ghost Rider, it was a one-issue thing. And I said to my son, I was like, I'm in the room. I'm not getting out of the room now. Like that's it. No one's letting me out of this room. I took too long to get here. I'm kicking this door down, and that's the way it's going to be. And I said that outwardly. Inwardly, I was absolutely panicked, because this could have been my shot.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel comfortable on that first issue of Rider until probably 10 or 11 pages in when I got my next gig.
But you were giving in pages. You were sending pages in.
Right.
I was sending in 3.5 to 4 pages a week. So I was about almost 3 weeks into the gig. And it was funny because it was all 3 Ghost Riders. So I was drawing cars, motorcycles, trailers. It was a very challenging first gig. And like my first panel ever for Marvel is a 2-inch panel of Robbie Reyes's Camaro in the rain in an alley in LA with graffiti all over the walls.
Who wrote that issue? Was that Ben Percy?
Percy, who was an incredible writer. He was very, very kind to me. He let me change stuff. He let me be creative. It was issue 16.
Yep. I like that.
Yeah. But yeah, deserving it, sure. But I'm just of the mindset that I need to work hard because I don't want, now that I'm in the, like I said, I'm in the room, I don't want to leave. So there's a balance to deserving it. Some people, do you have a lot of your books? Do you have a lot of this? Do you have a lot of that? And for me personally, and it's probably to a fault, but I just go to the next one. Enjoy it for a very small, brief second, and then I'm on to the next. I don't want to get caught up in it until later.
That makes perfect sense because as a freelancer, you have no guarantee where that next check is coming from.
Right.
And it starts with the check. It starts with the money because you got to pay your bills in order to survive, in order to work, no matter how much you enjoy drawing.
Right.
You can love your work to death. That just makes it harder because you want to do it more.
Sure. Yeah.
I, to this day, and I'm an extraordinarily old person, to this day, I still have that same feeling. Where's the next project?
Right.
And then, like somebody, usually my daughter will say, you're 74, shut up and sit down.
Hey, I have projects we should do.
Yeah, I know. And I want to. I wish I had a little bit more energy, but we
We'll do
will.
them.
Do them. Find the time to do them.
Yeah, it's not the time anymore. Mostly, it's
Motivation.
It's the energy. It's
Yeah, I get
the
it.
I want to do brand new things, and the older you get, the less other people think you can do brand new stuff.
Sure.
So you're still proving yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you're
Well,
still
always.
proving yourself.
I-
And by now, I'm comfortable with that. That's okay. You know, that's part of what makes it exciting.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about your fandom. Like
Okay.
you said, you always, from the time you're 10 years old, you wanted to be a comic book artist, right?
Yeah.
So why? What about this medium was enticing to you?
Well, to correct it, I always wanted to be an artist.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, I didn't know I wanted to work in comics. I like to consider myself an artist who works in comics, not a comic book artist. And that's not to slight anyone who calls
That is
themselves a
fair.
comic book
There's
artist.
nothing wrong with that.
I think you can be, it's whatever you want to call it. I grew up at the perfect time, I think, because in 81, 82, I had just started collecting He-Man figures, and I also got exposed to Fire and Ice by Frank Frazetta at almost the same time.
You're a
And
little too young for that.
I was way too young for that, but my mom didn't know that Tigra was going to be running around the way she was running around in that movie. I didn't know that I was supposed to like it as much as I did either. So, but once I discovered sword and sorcery stuff, and then Frazetta being just the absolute master that he is, I just knew I wanted to do that. Couple that with being the youngest in my family by 7 years, and I was alone all the time with my action figures and my creativity. So I always tell people that instead of sort of like having my action figures fight each other, what I would do is I would have them act out scenes that I would create. And I remember vividly holding the action figures and moving them around, almost like moving the camera around as a comic book artist and just working different angles cinematically. I just naturally did that. So the influences started there, and Star Wars was around for a couple of years, and to me it was like the golden age of superhero cartoons, Thundar, all these things. And I couldn't paint. I wanted to be a painter so bad, and the paintbrush never felt like the extension of my hand like a pencil did. And I wanted to work for Magic the Gathering. I wanted to do dragons. I wanted to do all this stuff, and then slowly I gravitated. It was Amazing Spider-Man issue 302. Trouble at the Docks, I think, is on the cover. It's Silver Sable, Sandman, and Spider-Man.
Good one.
And I'd never seen Spider-Man drawn like that until Todd McFarlane drew him like that.
That was some of his best stuff. I liked that a lot.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. And I discovered him. I discovered John Romita Jr. I discovered a lot of comic artists, and all of a sudden, I was like, I want to draw this stuff. But I've always thought of myself more of a storyteller than a splash page artist.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always said I may not be the best artist in the room, but I really want to be one of the best storytellers.
That's what comics are about. It's storytelling.
Right.
First and foremost, storytelling and your ability to tell that story visually is the most important element for an artist. Thinking visually is the most important element for a writer. Right. But we are, first and foremost, a visual medium.
Mm-hmm.
And you seem to be natural at it. And from what you're saying, that bears that out. But of course, we're all the result of all of our influences and that sort of thing. I mean, geez, you're working on these Frank Frazetta projects. My God, Frank Frazetta is an illustration god.
Yeah,
I played softball with him once when I was a teenager.
Did you really?
I did.
When you were a teenager?
Yeah, you don't know this? Well, I was like 18, so that makes me a teenager, right?
So he already turned down the Mets?
No. I was actually in Chicago where I grew up, And we had this little group of comics fans, all of whom were older than me. So I got a real classical learning education from them. They turned me on to EC, which predated me only by a few years, and to Milton Caniff, and to, just brilliant artists from the 1930s and 40s. So we were all big Frazetta fans because everybody was a big Frazetta fan.
Right.
And I knew that Frazetta came into Chicago every once in a while for meetings about with Playboy about Little Annie Fanny, because he was an assistant on Little Annie Fanny, because Annie Fanny didn't have enough muscles. He had to create provocative new ones, which is an amazing thought. So I got word that he was coming into town, and I thought, well, let's invite him. So he's not going to come. He doesn't do that. I said, well, let's invite him to a softball game. Was it?
Yeah.
Well, also Chicago has this killer version, and by killer I don't mean superlative, version of a softball where we play with these balls that are roughly the size of a small planet.
Okay.
So it's cutthroat. It's very cutthroat. And,
right.
He wanted in on that, and that was great.
Well, he was a great baseball player. I mean, he was drafted by the Mets.
Yeah.
Or I believe he could have.
What the world would be like if he and Fidel Castro took the jobs with the New York teams.
This is the crazy thing to me. Like, I never met him. I was lucky enough to meet his granddaughter and speak with her before I got the cover for Death Dealer. And this is a person I've never met in my life, and yet the impact on my life is so great. It always blows my mind. There's just certain people I'll never meet who made me make certain decisions about my life that I may not have made if they didn't exist.
Absolutely. You realize that we all grow up in this unbelievable game of dominoes. And if the right domino gets knocked over, your life goes this way.
Right.
And if it doesn't, then your life goes that way.
Yeah.
Sure. It's all because of your wanderings, where you take your life.
Yeah, it's interesting to know where you'd end up if you took a left instead of a right.
I mean, the perfect example of this is, Mike, you don't know this, but you're talking to a couple of Jersey boys who grew up in the same town. And,
really?
And Chris went to school with my cousin who also lived in the same town. And we didn't know
That's
that.
Crazy.
We didn't know till comics.
Yeah.
Well,
that's so crazy.
We talk a lot on the SquadCast about the comics community. And it is, at the risk of repeating myself endlessly, a wonderful community to be a part of. And if you can see that type of energy in other fields, and it certainly exists, musicians have that, actors, most creative people tend to get involved in communities like that. It's a wonderful thing because you share influences, you try to turn your friends on to really cool stuff that they might not have seen, and if they did, maybe they'll be just as enthusiastic as you were. And that's a bonding experience, and that's a growth experience. It's wonderful.
I want to, part of what I want to talk about, we can talk about this as much as you want, but I want to talk about Parker Reef.
Okay.
I want to talk about where this story comes from and what it's meant to you. Can you give a little bit of the backstory on the Adventures of Parker Reef?
Yeah. So I mean, how do I go about it? Well, I was
start wherever you want.
In 2013, I met this incredible woman. But because of reasons, we kind of chased each other for a little bit, and then we were together. And in 2017, we bought a house. 2018, in 2017, we got pregnant, and in 2018, we were supposed to have a baby named Parker Reef. And in March of that year, they passed. It was still is devastating to think about, to live in. The only thing that I had wanted longer than a kid, and I have 2 other children. This was her first. This was going to be my third. The only thing I've known longer than that is art, in a sense. That sort of made me me. If that makes any sense. Like, I love being a dad and I love being an artist. So
that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's just,
even to those of us who are not artists but are dads.
Yeah. I mean, I love being a dad, and when they passed, and in the way they passed, it was so devastating. It was a tragedy. It was not supposed to happen. It was a ton of stuff. I didn't know what to do with myself, and because the nature of being an artist is you create in all phases of life. Whether it's you're happy, you're sad, you're depressed, you're all these things. And I couldn't take a break because I still had to pay my bills. So I took about 30 days off, about a month off, and then I started doing shows again, and I wasn't ready. And one day I sat down at the desk and I started drawing, and all of a sudden it turned it within 10 minutes I had the entire story. And I called my buddy, who I'd known since I was 16. So I'd known him for about, what was that, like 30 years, 32 years at the time, 33 years. And I said, dude, I think I got something, and I think I have to do it. And I told him about it, and he said, you sure you want to do this? And I said, I'm not sure about anything right now, because my life was upside down.
Right.
And I just started drawing it, and I wrote it as I drew it. I had the idea, like I said, but I wrote it as I drew it. And when I was done, I sent it to him. And there's a part in the book called Parker's Dad, which is a letter to my son. And he's like, are you sure you want people to know you like this? In hindsight, maybe not. But at the time, I was reeling. I was treading water. So I did this book. And I repeatedly say, I love how this book has touched people's lives. I do. It's incredible. I just truly wish I wasn't the one to write it.
Sure.
That's the thing.
I understand that.
Absolutely. But that catharsis is important, particularly when you can, inadvertently or not, influence others who may be or into similar situations or may be in the future. Life is pretty much the same for all of us. It's a matter of timing.
So, there's something about that.
Do some good work.
There's something about that part that you said. I didn't make this book to help anybody.
Right. Of course.
I didn't make this book to make money on Kickstarter. Did it make money? Sure. Did I use it to make the books and survive? Absolutely. But that wasn't the goal. I had offers to do this thing and to bring it into Netflix. I had offers to do this thing, and people would come to me after the book came out, like, oh, we should do this. And I would never approach it that way. But the thing about the book that is so mind-blowing is there was this one family who came to New York Comic-Con after the book came out. And the only reason they came to the show was to talk to me. The only reason. And as they were standing in front of me, it was a father, it was a husband, wife, a son, and a daughter. And the daughter was older than the son. And all 4 of them, as I was looking at them, were every stage of grief that I had been in. One couldn't couldn't make eye contact. One was talking about the person as if they were still here. And, you know, just, they had every stage, and I was just looking at it, and I was just seeing myself. And they had lost their son. He was 10, and it had saved their lives. This book, it saved their marriage, and it gave their kids a way to understand grief in a comic book form that maybe people say a lot of things about grief, and I don't want to get into the weeds on it, but people say a lot of things about grief, but it's such a different animal for so many different people. I don't know that you can truly understand it, because it's not a competition. Everybody's grief is different, but somehow this book touched people in ways that I just never expected it to. And I think about Tana, because she was a trauma therapist. She did that her whole life. So the book is just an extension really of her, and, you know, who our son is, would have been, or whatever. But I get messages still. To this day, I get messages about, you know, I was a fan of yours. I didn't understand your grief. I didn't understand the things you went through. Last week we buried my son, and now that book means this to me.
Right.
You know, it's I don't know. I love drawing Parker Reef. I love drawing the characters in Parker Reef. There's a character in the book called Gigantic, who is the best thing I've ever created and will always be. And spending time with them is incredible. I mean, look at that guy. He's a He-Man figure. You know, he is what he is.
He is.
Yeah. He's an 80s toy. He's an 80s
fantastic.
Toy. You know, and writing him, it's just, I love the book because it keeps them present, and I hate the book because it reminds me that they're not.
So
that's true, but you have taken something and turned it into a force for good.
Yeah, well, if not, we wouldn't be talking right now.
That's
well,
right, and you know, that might not have been your intention, as you said, it really wasn't. But that's the purpose of art, isn't it? It goes out there and people react the way they react, sometimes in weird ways that you'd never anticipate. Sometimes, you know, you've helped them get over a trauma or deal with a trauma, at least. And everything that we do, including this podcast right now, affects people. It may not affect them immediately, but it affects people.
Well, yeah, we are. You said it. We're dominoes. We are continuously interacting, even if we don't know it, with each other's lives in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
So, I'm glad we're doing this. I'm glad you're doing this with us. I wish I was physically in the room with you, but you said that you wished that you weren't the one to write this book, and I understand that.
Right.
But I'm glad you were.
I appreciate that. I know what you mean.
There is,
because only you could do it.
And I just need to give a little bit of context for viewers who aren't familiar with the Adventures of Parker Reef. Parker Reef is on the other side.
Right.
And he wants to journey to this side.
Right.
And
he's 14 in the book because that's the day they passed. And his mother is continuously telling him how much I loved him, and his issue in the book is, well, if he loved us so much, why isn't he here with us? So he leaves. It's called Somewhere, because who knows where we go? Believe anything, but in the book it's called Somewhere. And he leaves this place. But the problem is no soul has ever made it out. And if you made it out, nobody knows how you get back. So it's left to the reader at the end of volume 1 to really decide what happens. But I'm not going to ruin volume 2 if people haven't read that one yet. It's a couple of, that's probably the best cover I've ever drawn in my life.
Yeah, it's a brilliant.
Yeah, I'll agree.
Yeah, I
love the JB's on it.
Yeah, he's the star of that book. But there he is. My actual Boston Terrier is a rock star in this book. But the thing about it is like, you know, when it came to writing this book, and again, it's about it's really about understanding when we lose people, why are they gone, and what happens, and you know, what happens to the people who are left behind, and how, if we could ask them one more thing, or if we could find out, like, like to lose a kid is this thing that not to sound dramatic, but I know what it costs to cremate a child,
Yeah.
like to wrap my head around that is a thing. And to deal with the guilt of that mourning, to deal with the fact that sometimes in relationships people argue or we do things, and to never get to apologize for certain things, and never get to say the words you want to say, and to never get to do things you want to do because you always think you have another day, and sometimes you don't, and to not get to say goodbye and all that stuff. So the book is really about Parker getting to do all the things that I didn't get to do, to ask the questions. Why aren't you here? To do all that stuff. And it's the challenge, just from a writing and art standpoint, is to not make it the saddest thing you've ever read in your entire life. It's still a comic book,
Right.
so Gigantic had to be that thing we could play off of, where he had, a couple of jokes. And, in part two, JB is that sort of, it's like JB is I always say it's his Wilson from Castaway.
Sure.
He doesn't talk back, but he needed something. He needed something to talk to. He needed something for the audience to relate to. And that's the weird part about it, because even though it's something so personal, my life as a creator created this adventure that is outside of just Tana and Parker. It's just this, I've created this world of characters who are
Okay, I'm here.
what they are.
I think Mike's
Am I
we
the only
can hear
one
you.
not frozen?
Oh yeah, he's frozen.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you're back.
There you
Wow, I was beginning to feel like Captain America there for a second.
go.
You're back. You're a little pixelated, so hopefully you'll stay with us. But we'll get you back. Just
Yeah, that's
focus on the good airwaves.
that's kind of the book. I mean, there's so much more to it, but that's basically.
It's an opportunity that you don't see as. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Sherry. What Sherry said is absolutely right on the money. It isn't your purpose to develop that, or to exploit that, or to work on that, but it is your purpose as an artist and as a creative person to share your feelings and to put that into your story work. It's who you are.
Yeah. It like I said, it's art is the part of me that existed before her that I could still connect with and to. And it's the thing she loved about me, besides being a dad. It's the thing she loved about me the most. She loved that I was an artist. And I definitely thought about quitting the moment all this went down. You think about a lot of things, but I couldn't do it. Can't do it.
I don't want to keep us.
No, it's fine. I know we've been wanting to talk about this for a while.
When I hear the successes that you're having, and we talk, and you tell me, you show me pages, you're like, I got this thing, or hey, I can't believe this is coming. I can't,
right.
And I think about how proud she would be.
Yeah.
And how excited she would be. So that's part of you. This is for whatever reason. And there's a lot of things that happen in this world, and we live in a world where art becomes magic.
Right.
And it doesn't make any sense. You did this,
Yeah.
You felt you needed to, you did it. And it was amazing. It wasn't just amazing for you. It was amazing for a lot of other people. It was amazing as a professional. because it was recognized for that. It was nominated for Ringo Awards,
Yep.
deservedly so. And it's hard, and we're never going to say that it's not. But there's been a lot of good, even fun, that came from it. And
Yeah.
I know you're not there yet. I know you're super busy, but sooner, hopefully rather than later, there'll be the conclusion to this trilogy.
Yeah.
Well,
The thing about Grief, in the 6 years that they've been gone, is I wrote Adventures 1 in the first year, and I wrote Adventures 2 going into the third, I believe. It's been a couple of years, and each wave of grief shows up in the book. Adventures 1 was written at a time when my brain was really blocking a lot of the PTSD that was about to happen to me once, people stopped asking how was I? And once the pictures that my brain was stopping me from seeing started to come back to me from that day and the days leading up to it and the months after. With part 3, I just keep telling myself the time that it's supposed to happen is going to happen at the right time.
Sure.
I'm in a much different stage of grief. I'm still angry. I'm still sad. I still think about them every day. I still talk to her every day. Every kid that's dressed as Spider-Man is still a little Parker to me. I still put his initials on things that I draw that are, out there. But I have admittedly changed. You can't go through something life-changing and not expect your life to change.
Right.
So part 3 is a much different story, but it also is a conclusion, and it offers a real, I think I'm not an expert, but I have a really good understanding of what grief is. And that's what part 3 is.
Books have a tendency to stick around. Stories stick around. They're handed down in one form or another, in one medium or another. The experiences that you have had and that you are still having will inure to the education of others long after you're gone.
Yeah,
you're doing great work here, because whether it's your intention or not, it does not matter. You're helping people.
Yeah, it's and I appreciate you saying that. The thing, again, there's things that happened obviously when the book came out and that it still exists. I had somebody come to me at Baltimore this year and just say, "Do you have Parker Reef?" Because it's like $90 on eBay right now. Some people are selling it for like $100 and $90. People, and I get it because I'm with Marvel now, so I'm worth something, I guess. I'm no different than I was the day before, but now the perception is different. It's funny. Like, on a side note, sometimes you look at some of the stuff on eBay and it's like a sketch that I did 7 years ago, and I'm like, man, you're not going to get that kind of money. This thing is trash. But people are still, selling it. But like some of the fallout from doing adventures that I am thankful for is I have had friends over the past 5-6 years who have lost significant others, who have lost children, friends, not just fans, but friends.
Right.
And they have trusted me with their grief. They have trusted me to private message me and say, how I do this? How are you doing this? And I don't have the answers, but I can provide. I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but I can provide brutal truth that a lot of people around somebody who suffer grief do not provide. If that makes sense.
Sure.
Makes sense. But I've been there, and we all will have been there.
Right.
All.
But there's this thing. Everybody means well when they know somebody who suffers a loss. And again, it's not a competition. I am not an expert. I'm not this, but I just find that for me, what I would have loved was a little more honesty. I would have liked that from the people around me, but nobody knew how to talk to me when this happened. Nobody dies in childbirth anymore and has a baby who's, essentially like this doesn't happen. So to speak to me about it was, how do you do it? And I'm not saying that people are handling it right or wrong or this and that, but just what I think my not gift at all, but my ability when somebody reaches out to me when they're suffering grief is I am coming from a place of listen, you are going to drown for a while. I'm not going to tell you it's for a better purpose. I'm not going to tell you it's a plan. I'm not going to tell you a better place. I'm going to tell you that right now it's just going to hurt and you need to sit in it. And I think that's what she gave me, and that's what he gave me by leaving, is they gave me this insight to what this is really kind of about. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Absolutely makes sense.
I learned a lot of tough lessons by them leaving. I learned lessons that I should have learned prior to, but life has a way of teaching you things.
Life happens whether you want it to or not.
Yeah, it's like a
All right. Again, thank you for sharing that.
I appreciate it. I hope that made sense. I'm not trying to sound arrogant in any way or anything.
It made all the sense in the world. Thank you for doing that. Let's change topics a little bit.
Okay.
One of the things that I find very interesting about you, and you do a lot of shows.
Yes.
As many as you can. I know, because you actually have deadlines that you have to commit
I have a page right in front of me right now that I have to have 3 more pages done by Thursday. So yep.
Okay. So you've developed quite a community.
Yes.
There are these people who follow you around, who go to your shows and show up and like, hey, I know you. And they have a name. How rewarding has that been for you to see people at conventions and continue to grow people to connect with about your art and just humanity?
It's you mean the companions?
Sure.
The companions are as ridiculous as it sounds, they're more friend than fan.
Sure. Yes.
Fan sometimes is a weird word to me.
Community, as I said.
Yeah, community is really great way of putting it. And I have this, I call it the mixtape theory. Have I told you about the mixtape theory? So let's say you are a fan of a band, and the band is playing like basements and college parties and underground. Nobody's going. It's like you and 3 other people going to this thing.
Sure.
And they're selling mixtapes out of the back of their car at the end of it, and you got one. 10 years later, they're signed to a major record deal. And through those 10 years, they've been telling all their friends about you. Every show they played, they met 1 or 2 or 3 people, and all those 3 people were telling all their friends, all their friends. That's what this community is. It's the mixtape theory. They were there from the beginning.
Yep.
And they feel like they made it too. And they did. And it's the craziest thing, because when I tell people, when people come up to me like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, you're here. And again, I don't define myself by the company I work for. I define myself more by the work that I do. But I'd be lying if I didn't say Marvel was a dream. I'm drawing characters that I've loved for, 45, 50 years. But they made it with me. If they don't support me when I'm just quote unquote indie, then I don't have the time to work on my craft to the point where somebody from a bigger company notices me.
Right.
I was a rare thing where I was an indie guy who was able to do this full time and make a living, put my son through college and not be a quote unquote starving artist. I'm not living high on the hog. My studio's inside my living room, but I did sell my house a couple of years ago. I downsized, but like, I'm not starving, and it's because of them. Yeah, I work hard, but it's because people take their money from their hard-earned money from their jobs and decide to give it to me so I can continue my dream.
Right.
You know,
Well, you're giving them something back. You don't
I give them
discount
me.
that.
Yeah, I'm giving them
You're
me.
giving them art.
They
You're making beauty and giving it to them. And
Yeah,
they pay for that.
but
they have a choice. There's so much out there. And I'm not just talking about comic books. I'm talking about, we don't have enough time. Forget about the money and all that. We don't have enough time. There's all this stuff on TV, and there's movies, and there's friends, and there's music, and there's life. So if somebody's spending some of their cash on something that you've done, that you're involved with, take it for the compliment that it is.
yeah, and that's it. It's not lip service. I mean, Bob, you've seen me at shows. People can hang out at my table for 3 hours and not buy a thing. I don't care. Let's just talk.
Sure.
It's not about, I don't look at them as cash cows. They're my friends. They're people. I know things about them. We catch up at shows. We catch up in the group. We catch up in private messenger. Yeah, there's new people to the party now because of Marvel or catching on or this and that. But inevitably, they run into a companion at a show, and the companion's telling them about buying Kentaro from 2011, which is like cringeworthy. But that's how the conversation goes. And it's. I tell them all the time, over the past 6 years, they have kept me breathing. They really are incredibly important to me. And I hope they understand how much. And I try to give them as much of me and as much as I can in the work and everything else. But I really don't know, besides my kids, I don't know that there are a more important group of people to me than the people who have allowed me to live this dream.
Right. There aren't. Because they've allowed you to live that dream.
I'd be an artist no matter what, but I don't know that I'd be a working, successful artist without them.
Right.
I want to talk a little bit about the work that you're doing.
Okay.
Right? And this is an interesting concept because we talk to a lot of creators, and whether they're writers or artists, they do certain things, they come a certain way. But you came at comics as an adult,
right?
After you had done other things. You said,
right.
I'm going to go do this thing that I love,
right?
And you did it indie style. So you were writing for yourself and drawing for yourself, and however that works, because everybody has their own way that works.
Mm-hmm.
And now Marvel calls up and says, hey, why don't you do this issue? And hey, here's another issue. And now you have somebody else's script in your hand, and you have to make pictures out of that. Right. How was that for you?
Harder than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Harder than I thought. Again, priding myself on being a storyteller. I had worked from other people's scripts as indie, but it was much more of how do I say it? I mean, we're working with characters who have 60 years of history. There's not as much wiggle room with certain things. We can't just be like, okay, well, maybe they can levitate. It's like we have established things that we can and can't do storytelling wise. But the hardest part was trusting myself. Getting, like I said before, Ben on Ghost Rider was really great because he's like, I had an idea for page 1. And I hadn't even started drawing the book. And I met him at a show, and I was like, hey, man, I'm drawing issue 16. I love the script. By the way, can I change page 1? And thankfully, he wasn't anything but kind. He's like, just make it look cool.
Just make it look cool.
Exactly. The deepest voice in the land. And a lot of, look, we all have visions. We're all creators, and we have certain ways we want things to look at. But when you find the right collaborative mix, which can sometimes admittedly be more difficult than others. I've been lucky where I haven't worked I've only worked with writers who have been like, hey man, this is an outline. Yeah, there's a couple of things that need to happen, but you're the driving force behind this because it's a visual medium, like we said earlier. So I've been lucky, but initially it was a challenge of trusting my instincts because I would get caught up in making sure they liked it instead of making sure I liked it. If that, that makes sense. I wasn't drawing for myself anymore. So the art was getting compromised because I just felt like I was trying to please everybody else, and I stopped drawing instinctually. And it shows in some of the work. What's that?
Did you fix that?
Yeah. It definitely takes time. And what I'm doing with Marvel now, they've kept me incredibly busy, which is awesome. I'm on an issue, I'm on 2 issues, I'm doing covers, I'm on an issue. So it's the challenge now is getting comfortable enough with the characters when you're only drawing them for 1 issue and doing high quality work that doesn't disrupt the run. And a writer is working with an artist on a series, and all of a sudden you come in to do a filler or you come in to do something, and it's like, well, we don't want to skip a beat. And myself and the other artist have a really good rhythm. And then you come in and you've got to make sure you don't step on anybody's toes.
Yeah.
But you also have to do work that is true to yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I've had conversations with some writers who are, working on something, and they thought the fill-in guy would be perfect, and he wasn't.
Right.
And that, to be that filling guy is a big deal because comics work a little differently than they did in the past, where it was just like everybody would show up and you chunk out a page. I mean,
right.
A page a day, and you got a book a month, and that was it. And you just kept going.
Yeah.
And fill-in was for emergencies. Now they're built in. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong there, Mike, but
no, they're built into the schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're built into the schedule. It's but the thing is, it's funny because you go online and people, and I understand fandom and everybody has their opinions, and I watch a lot of us get kind of torn up.
Sure.
I got torn up on an issue I worked on recently, not by a lot of people, but there was one guy in particular who really took the time to tear me a new one. And I was like, wow, that's I'm glad I made that much of an impact. But we're not setting out in all these emails and these scripts and the thumbnails and the hours and the bad backs and the bad hips and the bad nutrition. Like, we're not setting out to make bad books. It's not the way it is. I'm not working 7-day work weeks so I can have something to come out that we're all not proud of. And neither is the writer, neither is the editor, the colorist, the inker, the letterer, none of us are trying to make a bad book. Does it happen? Maybe it doesn't read well sometimes. Maybe we miss the mark, but it's not for lack of effort. We're working our asses off, and it's very difficult to take people who are influenced by other things and to put them in a room and say, okay, let's make something great. And we've got 5 weeks to do it, and we have to pay attention to 45 to 50 years of stuff that happened prior to, that's a tough thing to do. I think we do a great job of it, but of course we're going to miss sometimes. I mean, I'm a big Billy Joel fan, but I can't listen to some of his songs, people miss. It just happens. Right. But the
Stop
overall
giving shade to Street Life Serenade.
I love Street Life Serenade.
It's my favorite album.
It's my favorite song. Street Life Serenade is my favorite song. I don't know. Root Beer Rag.
He hates it though. He hates that album.
Well, I know he hates Root Beer Rag too. He hates that song.
It's so funny because he said that Street Life Serenade is terrible because he rushed it, and it's some of the most interesting stuff I think is there.
Well, I'm sure he had to rush it because Cold Spring Harbor was recorded at the wrong speed and it was a mess. And then Piano Man hits and Serenade comes out next, and the record company was probably like, "Let's get some stuff out there."
Yep.
You know, like, I'm a Billy Joel fan more than anything, and if I hear somebody tell me that Uptown Girl is a good song, I'm gonna have a hard time with it because it's not a good song. It's just, I'm sorry. I know it's his most popular song besides Piano Man, but it's not very good. So we could have a whole podcast on Billy Joel, I'm telling you.
There is an important point here that I think a lot of folks don't quite understand because they're on the wrong side of the issue. You might have done something that you absolutely hate. You wish you didn't do it. You wish you could get it all back. You know, and that's fair. That happens. That's part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
But that piece of shit that you just did, that you hate, that's somebody's favorite story ever. And maybe a lot of people's favorite stories. Same thing with other media, movies and what have you. You know, you go out there in the public and everybody's going to react individually just as they're supposed to do. So,
This is a privilege that people get to have an opinion about my work.
Fair.
yeah,
That's a great way to put it. Absolutely.
It is. Otherwise, it's just on the fridge at my mom's house. You know, like this. And I'm not just saying that to say that, you know, critique doesn't bother me. But to be honest, I've been in this game for so long. I don't know that it really bothers me. You just take it as it is, because nobody's gonna say something negative about my work more than I think about some of the stuff. You know, I do good work, but there's stuff I'd love to redraw. There's an issue that came out that, man, I wish I had another 2 weeks. And it wasn't because the deadline was short. It's just I had a lot of life going on, and I don't know that it's my best work. And there's probably things in there that my peers will see that maybe an everyday fan might not see. But that kind of stuff I'd love to do over, but we can't. We move on to the next thing, and we just make the next work better, or we at least try to. You know, that it's kind of like being an artist is almost like they talk about in football, like defense, like DBs have to have short-term memory.
Sure.
You know, or it's like in Ted Lasso where he's like have the memory of like a goldfish.
Goldfish. Yep.
Yeah, you have to have that. I have stuff that is in people's hands right now or getting ready to come out. I'm lucky enough to be able to do it. I'm lucky enough to have done it. I'm lucky enough to get to do more of it. And there are things that I cringe when people bring it to my table, because I'm like, man, I know what was going on in my life when I drew this. This is a bad memory. I was having a bad month of grief. I was having a bad 2 weeks when I drew these 7 pages. And it's not just a gig. Like, I'm all over those pages. My mood, you have a certain level of professionalism that you switch it off, and you're working for 10, 12 hours and you get a page out, but you are still impacted by the things that are in your life. I don't leave my office. I'm an artist 24 hours a day.
That's right.
And you're not alone in that. Like, that's the other thing. Like, I mean, there are plenty of people. I remember I brought to friend of the show, Dean Haspiel, I brought him the Justice League. He did a Justice League bonus book inside, and he hates it a lot.
Yeah. Right.
He hates it a lot. He also had like a broken arm and a broken leg at the time he was doing it, but he had to get it done over that summer.
Yep.
And he signed it, and he told me how much he hated it.
Yeah.
And that's part of the gig,
Every once in a while, you'll be sitting there at your table at a convention, and somebody's going to come up and tell you this was the greatest comic book of their lives they ever read. Yep. You should just sign it. It's just brilliant, and it changed their lives. And you thought it was just a piece of shit. And
yeah,
what you learn pretty fast is not to rain on their parade. They have a right to like stuff.
I made that mistake once. It was years ago, and obviously it impacted me because I still think about it. I had a guy buy a Spidey piece, and at the time it was the best I could do. And a couple of years later, he was still supporting the gig, and he came up and he's like, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me, but you did this piece for me," and my reaction was just very quickly, "Oh God, I hate that piece." And I saw it in his face that I kind of shit on his Cheerios because like he's like, I love that piece. And I immediately tried to like walk it back, and I couldn't. Like it was done. It was out there.
I want to share. I'll share this story. It's along the same lines. Mike knows the story because he was there when I heard it. But so John Ostrander hates when anybody asks him what's the worst thing you've ever done, because he has an answer,
right?
And so someone asked him that on a panel once, and he answered. And I'm not John Ostrander, so I'm going to tell the answer. The answer is it's an issue, I think, of Star Slayer, where there's a golden Moby, and Tim had come up with this idea for this giant space whale. Tim Truman had come up with this idea. And then, so it was going to be a 2-parter. And so it was like kind of Tim's idea, and John didn't really like it, but he's like, all right, we'll go with it. And then Tim quit between issue 1 and issue 2. So he had to finish it all by himself. And he hated it. So he says, that's the issue that I hate the most. And there's a person in the front row who's like, that's my favorite issue of all time.
That's right. And by the way, I love that story.
I know you do.
I really enjoy that story because it is totally batshit.
Yeah, that's the thing.
We were doing totally batshit a lot over at First Comics, and we were loving every minute of it. So if you're turning out some batshit that you don't particularly care for, take it for the team.
I know we don't have you for very much longer, so I do want. We have a question. I want to post. I'd love to know what's the favorite cover that you've done, because you've done a bunch of cover work, especially lately, even more and more.
So there's not one. The Parker 2 cover. I think that's the best Parker I'll probably ever draw.
That's fucking great.
Yeah, thanks. It just looks right. And I'm excited. Like I said, I am excited to draw him, in 3, and I'm really excited to draw Gantic again. The Death Dealer cover, because it's Frazetta. And I did get to work on Fire and Ice after that, but I never thought that I would draw a Frazetta cover. That He-Man cover. So there's a story behind this.
Listen to me. The fact that you are drawing a Turtles and He-Man cover gives me such joy.
I know. There's
the
so
fact that
much
Tim
love.
is writing this and Freddie is drawing it is fantastic. But the fact that you did a cover, fucking great.
Tim's really I don't know Tim well at all. I like, we're not friends, but Tim has been nothing but supportive. I've been chasing him down for years, and he has gone above and beyond trying to he's been supportive. We talk about Master of the Universe stuff and this and that, and the opportunity to get to do that cover, I won't ever sell that cover. It's priced in the portfolio not to sell. But
I hope
you are
proven wrong.
What's that?
I hope you are proven wrong.
That it sells?
Yeah.
Well, I was told a long time ago that you're ready to be a professional when you're ready to sell your work. So I probably should sell it at some point, but I think I'll hold on to it for a little bit. But the cover, the number 1 cover is the Spider-Boy.
Yeah,
and
I thought about that one too.
The reason it's number 1 is there's a big story behind it. I didn't know it was for Spider-Boy 1. I thought it was just for an issue with Spidey. In fact, I did layouts that had the villain from the current run that was going on, and they chose that layout, and they didn't tell myself or Mark Morales that we were doing a Spider-Boy 1. And in the wall behind Spidey, where his hand is, are my late son's initials, right up there.
Mm-hmm.
And it says PRC, but I made it look like debris. And I hope I don't get in trouble for that. But
We
Yeah,
have
right.
stories. We have stories. Don't worry about it. There are more luminary people than you who have done things
Yeah.
worse than that.
Yeah. So, Mark texted me and he's like, "Hey, are these letters or is this debris?" And I told him what it was. He was like, "All right, and that cover, there's a lot of things about it. It's my first ever Marvel cover. It's my first Spider-Man cover, and my son is named after Spider-Man. I mean, Parker is Peter Parker, and so
Right.
all that going into it, that cover will never leave this family. So that has a not for sale on it in the binder.
Sure.
So yeah, but also I just did a cover for they've announced it, but they haven't shown the image. It's my favorite, my best drawn, if that's even proper English, drawn cover for Marvel is the Daredevil Christmas holiday special that comes out. I think it's December 18th. It's absolutely the best cover I've drawn for them.
Awesome.
Yeah. I can't wait for you guys to see that one.
The fact that you said that the best thing I've ever done is the most recent thing you've ever done just tells you how the end is so far away.
Yeah. Let's hope so. There's some cool stuff coming down the road, but I'm still always nervous that I handed my last project. Like when I handed these pages on Thursday, if I don't have anything lined up, I'm going to immediately think I'm unemployed.
When you realize that the best thing you've ever done, you haven't done yet, and you don't know when you're going to do it.
Yep.
That means you own both the carrot and the stick.
Right.
It's an amazing feeling of power.
Well, yeah,
you're going to make it. You're going to do it.
Every piece gets you to the next one. And there's things that I've learned. I had somebody tell me when Ghost Rider 16 came out, they were like, a year from now, you're going to hate everything about this issue, but you have to make sure that you always love it.
Sure.
You have to make sure you always love it because it's your first, like you did it. No one can ever take that away from me that I did that issue and I did that Spider-Boy cover. And thankfully I've had an opportunity to do more, but where my psyche has changed, and maybe it's because of what happened with Tan and Park, or maybe it's just getting older or whatever it is. I make this joke that I'm on the back nine, but I do always hate stuff that I draw, but hate's a strong word. I just look at things differently now. I look at my art and I look at the journey of it differently than I did when I was, not so changed by life.
Realizing you're on the back nine or deciding you're on the back nine. That's I mean, you don't know if that's true or not, but it doesn't matter. It's
Right.
when you realize that you've been playing miniature golf. That's when you get screwed up.
Well, yeah, if I come across the clown's mouth at 60, I'm going to have a problem.
Well, listen, you're going to be fine. This is going to be, like I said, the fact that there's a lot more to come. We're excited about. We're excited about. We're excited about when you have the time and the right spot for Parker 3.
Yeah.
And you're welcome to come back and we can talk about it when it's kickstarting and we can, prop it up because we love to do that.
We enjoy doing that. I like Kickstarter at all the other, companies that do that. And I support as much of it as I can because it's a cauldron for creativity. The fact that it exists, the fact that you don't need to get anybody's permission other than the people who are willing to give up their credit card number.
Right.
And trust you with that, even though you don't, they're trusting somebody with that. it's like you never bitch about people who are helping you pay the rent. Well, these people are doing it in advance. They're doing it on faith.
Yeah, Kickstarter is when I came back into the gig and I was kickstarting stuff, you know, it made me realize that there was other avenues to be able to do this besides working for, you know, a big publisher. You
Right.
know, crowdfunding and those things. You know, there's this. I think the best thing, or one of the best things about this whole community of creatives, whether you're indie or you're an aspiring creator or you're out there, you know, all of us, is that except for a couple of bad seeds, we really do want to see each other succeed.
Yes, we do. It's yes.
You know, we really do.
We know who the bad seeds are.
Yeah, we do know. We know a few, but
thank you for doing this. I know we've kept you from finishing the pages you need to be.
That's okay. I finished this one the other day. Real quick. Can't see that.
Okay.
Oh, no. Don't do that.
I'm
Bring
going
it
to screen
back
cap
to
it.
the
Don't worry
camera.
about it.
Please bring it back to the camera.
I can't show you again.
This has been great. I really appreciate you being here.
I appreciate it, man.
So what is still announced? What's announced that is coming that hasn't come out yet? I know that the Daredevil. Is the Daredevil issue out yet?
Daredevil came out September 4th. The Spidey cover that I just did for Amazing 57 came out September 11th. He-Man hit on the 25th of this month, and also Chasm. My cover to Chasm 2 hit on the 25th of this month. The next three things are Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance issue 2. I did the interiors on that. I did an Iceman cover for Exceptional X-Men.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So that
the Daredevil cover.
So can we talk about this for a second? I'm gonna keep you on because this is my irritation.
Do it.
So I read Exceptional X-Men and I liked it. I'm a huge Kitty Pryde fan.
Right.
And I got to so you don't have to comment because you work for Marvel, but I got to the QR code. And I'm spoiling it, so pay attention. You get to the QR code, and then you click on the QR code on the issue 1, and you get to the extra page, and it's half page on the top talking about this weird app, and then the bottom half is Mr. Drake go to Chicago, and if you didn't click on the QR code, you have no idea why there's solicitation for a Iceman cover on Exceptional X-Men because he was not supposed to be in that team.
Right.
Now you don't have to comment because you work for them, but for the rest of the people listening, this is my rant.
But the win of that is that I got to do a cover because he is on the team.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, I was a kid. I was Iceman. You know, I was Bobby. So
really,
my friend was Petey, and we played Amazing Spider-Man. I mean, Spider-Man is Amazing Friends, and that's what we did.
I just saw the final colors for it today.
Oh, fantastic!
I got it. I got an email.
Who colored it
today? Ceci De La Cruz.
Nice.
Robert Pogge inked it because Marvel's really, really smart and puts really, really talented people on my stuff. So it looks really, really, really good. That's one thing I will leave you with this. I know that everybody's unhappy at one point or another with a publisher or a company or this and that. And I'm not just saying this because I work for them. They have been so incredibly good to me.
Good.
I have asked for things and they have found a way for me to get them. You know, I can ask for my inker. I can ask for my colorist. Every email is, we want to put you on a project where you're going to look the best that you can look. It's always that. It has never been, and I know creators have horror stories, and I might have one 6 months from now. I have no idea. But I can tell you currently, you know, for the past X amount of time that I've been with them, they've just been good to me. You know, they literally ask, you know, what do you want to work on? And if there's an opportunity to do it, I mean, I'm still asking for one particular thing, which I haven't been able to get, but you know, certain things, it's been great.
Good.
You
Yeah.
can't ask
Right.
for more. You really can't ask for more than that. You know, you're making a living. People
Yeah.
like your work, and you're getting to do it, and you do it pretty much the way you want. That's pretty good. You know.
Yeah,
You don't
it's
get
it's
very often.
it's been great. I'm always nervous. I'm always excited, and I always want to, you know, make sure that I get the next one. But I have no complaints.
Well,
Awesome.
I regret not having been to Baltimore this one year. I fully intend on coming back next year. I don't do as many conventions as I used to because I'm cranky, but I look forward to seeing you, if not there, then somewhere else on the convention trail. It's been a wonderful conversation, Chris.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Bob, I'll see you, I'm sure, out there.
Yeah.
But
I'll see you.
yeah.
You're going to New York?
Yeah, I'm in New Hampshire this Saturday with CB and a couple of the people at the comic. I think it's Comic Bash, and then I'm in Big Tex Con next week. And then I'm in New York.
Okay. I'll see you there.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chris.
Take it easy,
I really
Chris.
appreciate it.
Thank you. You said
All right.
something I want to jump on.
What's that?
You said something I wish to contribute to.
Go ahead.
You talked about how you played Bobby and Pete when you were a kid. When I was 10 years old, I was at day camp, and we were playing superheroes. Everybody got to pick their favorite superhero. They asked me who I wanted to play, and I said Green Lantern, Hal Jordan. And everybody to a person said, who the hell's that?
Oh, my goodness.
Because the second issue of the regular monthly or bi-monthly book had just come out.
Yeah, but you knew it from the showcase.
From showcases, sure. Which I fell in love with it instantly. The little 9-year-old in me just went ape shit over that. And still do over Kilcane stuff, by the way. And by the time we were done playing superheroes at day camp, I swear every other person who was playing there said, God, I'm going to go out and get this Green Lantern comic book. I sold DC about a dozen
before you got paid to do it.
Yeah, well, I was auditioning for the job.
So ironically, when I played superheroes and I was Iceman, and the person who was Spider-Man, because he didn't get to be, he had no choice because I got to be Iceman because the name worked, right?
Right, of course.
He is still my friend, and he is my tattoo artist, and he has Gil Kane art in the bathroom of his tattoo shop.
That's great. First of all, there's this brilliant tattoo artist that has been wanting to do one on me forever, and I'm not opposed to it.
You should.
But the reason why I haven't done it is we agreed it would be Big Barda, and it was going to go on my shoulder right there. And then finally, I'm thinking about it, and I'm going like, I'd have to start shaving my shoulder.
It's not that bad. I didn't know it wasn't that bad. Now I shave my shoulder. So
I'm not ready. I'm still not ready for that.
I want to we have a couple minutes before we need to sign off, and if anybody wants, I kind of want to talk about, move away and do a little bit. We had our interview, which was great. We really loved that. Thanks people for watching that. I want to talk a little bit about the phenomenon that we're having in comic book properties being other media, right? So, and specifically, I have 3 things I want to talk about, and I'd like your opinion on them. One is Agatha All Along, the other one is the Penguin Show, and the third is Joker. Whatever, I don't even know how to pronounce that thing, a foie,
Okay.
whatever it is, menage a trois. I don't know. Um,
I'd go
so
see it if it was called that.
well, it premiered last night. So I have, and of those things, I've seen the first 2 episodes of Agatha all along, and I enjoy it.
I love
I
Agatha. We've watched the first 3,
Okay.
Adrian and I, and I love it for so many reasons. It's true to the character in the TV show,
Yeah.
and the character is wonderful, but so are each of the new characters that they've introduced. And it's almost a satire. Well, maybe it is clearly a satire on modern American living, because these witches, other than the fact that they're witches, are just normal human beings with all their foibles, and somehow they make it, because they're witches, they make it absolutely hilarious. I love it.
I love it too. I'm enjoying it, um, because it's it's it doesn't need to. There's First of all, it's not tied to a property that is uh, that people have to be very concerned about.
Right.
Um, I think that the storytelling in the television medium is fantastic. They're doing it in a good way. The acting is really good. The storytelling is good. I'm enjoying it, and I can
There's
enjoy it for
there's
that.
there's a ton of money on that screen too. Just look at the credits
Well, I
afterwards.
understand. First of all, I am in love with the concept of Patty LuPone and Aubrey Plaza as a duo.
Yeah,
They are my heart, and there's that. Um, so I mean, there's that. The other thing that I kind of wanted to talk about. So then we have there's a different concept. All right. So and that concept is that, the Penguin show, which I haven't seen yet, but I've heard very good things about, right? Um, is a it is a mob crime story. I know people are upset with it because it's very different from the canon of what the Penguin should be in comics. I don't,
absolutely.
and I don't have as much of a problem with this as as I do with the Joker. And here's why. Um, this is in the realm of what Matt Reeves was making, and Matt Reeves was trying to, rightfully or not, um, make Batman this ridiculous caped, cowled crime fighter make sense in our world, which is not something that can be done. So the fact that he's trying to do that is beyond what should be done, but he tried to, and I think he did as good a job as one can for what he was trying to do. What upsets me, and I'd like your opinion on this, and so it's not, upset is a different word, but what is more of a concern to me is why I'm not interested in the Joker is that I feel, maybe I'm wrong, but it certainly seems to me that Todd Phillips does not want to make a Joker movie. He wants to make a movie about a psychopath, and he
Right.
convinced Warner Brothers to give him money to do it.
That probably wasn't hard, because Warner Brothers was changing hands every 22 minutes. So,
But
but I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. I like the Penguin series a lot. Um, it's a good show in my book. It is not the guy from the comics, but on TV and in the movies, we never have that same person. They're different media, and you can stretch things in certain ways in comics that you can't in live action. and vice versa. This, to me, the take on the Penguin is, what if we were doing The Sopranos?
Right.
And I haven't seen much
in Gotham City.
In Gotham, well, but Gotham City's, kind of New York, and they're shooting it at Silver Cup Studios, which is the same place where they shot The Sopranos.
Mm-hmm.
They're also shooting it in, Canada and all kinds of places, but a lot of it's being done here, and it isn't a coincidence. And Colin is terrific in his character. If you're looking for Burgess Meredith, you're going to be severely disappointed. And the wit and whimsy of the comic book Penguin in each of his incarnations until recently was very two-dimensional. He's got depth to it. I want to know what he's thinking. The character of his mother, I think, is phenomenal. It's what made The Sopranos work and what got them into trouble, unfortunately, when the mother character died. I'm curious to see how their relationship evolves through this series. And if I'm looking forward to the next episode to find out what a character other than the lead characters is going to be doing, then you've got me. You've got a good show. I enjoy the Penguin.
Good. I'm looking forward to
the new Joker. I like Lady Gaga, but the new Joker movie, probably won't see it. No intention of it. I know I said that about the Batman, and I ultimately did. But I have no intention of seeing the Joker because I've already seen the Joker on film in big movies twice, two totally different Jokers. I don't need a third, and one that is very purposefully has very little to do with the overreaching mythology. I have no curiosity in it.
Yep, I understand. That's how I feel about it. All right, folks, we're going to let you go. You can go watch the rest of the vice presidential debate if you want to.
Pie fight. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Be back here next week. We will have Kyle Starks on the show. It's going to be fun. It is. I don't know how many words we're going to get in. It's going to be a fight because Kyle is a brilliant, wonderful, fantastic human being who does not stop talking. So
I may just have the little cardboard cutout of me here.
It's gonna be exciting. So definitely be here. We're also trying something new tonight, folks. There's been some upgrades to the software that we streamed to you with. So we'll see how this works. I'm going to end this stream, and it is going to give you our regular closeout. So until next week, we will see you later.
Thank you for being here, folks. We always appreciate it. Please write to us. Tell us what you want to see, even if it's just shut the hell up. Thanks, guys.
This has been a production of the Pop Culture Squad Network. PopCultureSquad.com. How do you nerd?